Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one present chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, we're going to dive in first. If you're listening later episodes, they're going to hear a lot of me telling them why you're not there because, you know, you did things like, I don't know, celebrate birthdays and anniversaries, like you were more important than us. So this is our proof of life. I had to have one. It's been a couple episodes.
First and foremost, you will never convince me that I am too old to celebrate my birthday, considering I wasn't supposed to live past 10 years old and I just hit 37 like the freaking queen that I am. I will celebrate every single year. And I will do it in the most epic way. In the pool. With booze.
So, with that out of the way, we have our proof of life. So when you hear in later episodes me saying why they're not there, just so you know, this was the episode for you. We planned it specially just so I could prove they were alive. We were going to do a wellness check, but like you got the doormats that say don't come back unless you got a warrant, and I didn't want to create an international incident.
Oh, don't forget that there's the back one says, I hope those plates are 3A.
And the funny thing is, because we were talking about like monsters and like paranormal and urban fantasy, and like the welcome mats could be considered as giving vampires permission to enter your house. So it's been a running joke of the podcast.
Yeah, it's like informal consent, I guess would be the legal term for it. You know,
and if they can somehow know what holy ground is and isn't, even when it's not holy ground anymore, I figure, you know, why not a doormat, right?
Right, that's true. I mean, there's no holy water in the house, but I do have a lot of slugs for the shotgun that were blessed by priests.
That is awesome. I do know that they call dragon fire rounds, and when I die, I want to be put into, I want to be put into one. They cremate you and they put your ashes into shotgun shells, and then they add extra explosives, so when it fires, it just goes like dragon's breath, and you just get spread into the universe.
The creative mind behind the Dragon's Breath round was a fan of Ghost Rider comics when Johnny Blaze was no longer the Ghost Rider, and he had the Hellfire rounds for a hog leg shotgun, double barrel shotgun. And since he was a fan, he's like, oh, I wonder if I could make that. And he did. And the world's a better place for it.
And then they started putting cremated remains in it, as one does.
That's right. Crosses, rosary beads.
I actually joked that like they should just cut off one of my fingers and stick it in there so it just randomly shoots out, and people were like, oh my God, we got to investigate, you know, just to mess with them. Could you imagine the crime scene guy freaking out? Like, what the hell's going on?
Oh, God. I've tagged along with forensics, and those guys are already high strung. Don't stress them out anymore.
I always wanted to.
Although we did get into a conversation the other night because I came across an Instagram reel, and this lady said, when somebody breaks into my house, I have to remind myself they're stuck in here with me. I'm not stuck in here with them. And then she lights up 2 of her lightsabers. And so we wound up in a whole conversation of if we actually wanted to use our lightsabers and have them become evidence and get taken away from us. And it was a whole entire conversation if we wanted, because I mean, if your lightsaber has a kill count, that's freaking awesome.
It's got to be Vader's.
But hashtag comma, now we have to buy a new lightsaber.
Yeah, that's a problem. Unless you lost a lightsaber in a tragic boating accident, and then you could just retrieve it later. Hypothetically, FBI agent that's watching this. All right, now that we got our shenanigans out of the way, we're sorry to put you through this, but we've got as our guest Professor Christopher McGlothlin. You told me how to say it earlier, and I just still messed it up.
Oh, it's McGlothlin. It's a leftover of my illiterate Scottish ancestors who tried to overthrow the government and got thrown out of the country for it. So, but McGlothlin, fine, Professor. I'm good. Whatever.
So, first or second Jacobite uprising?
After Culloden.
Oh, the second. All right, that's how my ancestors got here too. When you lose a rebellion, they call you a traitor and they want to hang you. When you win one, they make statues for you in Washington, D.C. Who knew? That was their mistake. They just didn't win. All right, with that out of the way, because this is the Blasters and Blades podcast, first we will tell you how we first found him. Mike Lafferty introduced us, and we found Mike through his Banff podcast. I published a few short contents with his Fainting Goat Games, and he said, "Hey, I've got a friend
for a while."
Absolutely. And he said, "Hey, we've got this guy Christopher who has cool horror story stuff, and I know Nick's a fan of horror. Can you have him on the show?" And we didn't even think. Nick is actually took some time off to be here because he likes horror movies so much.
Oh,
I mean,
awesome.
you didn't really want to do that paperwork anyway, did you?
We were binge watching the Conjuring universe before we hopped on here.
Nice. All right, and with that out of the way, we do have to do the religion questions. Are you ready for this, Professor?
I'm always like to take a test.
All right. Star Wars, Star Trek, or Firefly?
Other than cornering Ron Glass at a convention and asking him Barney Miller questions for 45 minutes, I don't know Firefly. Star Wars, I got thrown out of the theater in 1983 for shouting bullshit at the Ewoks. So I guess I will have to go with Star Trek, although don't at me with any of the Abrams-verse shit. And Alex Kurtzman is on the short list of people I would run down with my car.
I like it. So you did not like the Care Bears of Death. You did not like the Ewoks.
It was a complete betrayal of all 14 years of my life up to that point. And I've kind of other than a sneaky appreciation with Rogue One and Andor, it's just all kind of been dead to me ever since then. And I know I've missed some good stuff. You can't break a 14-year-old kid's heart and ever get it back.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a valid complaint. I can absolutely see that. So, all right, because we are polytheistic here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, Game of Thrones, The Wheel of Time, or Chronicles of Narnia.
I used to work for a company that licensed Game of Thrones, so that's the only one I have any real familiarity with. So I'll pick that by default, and so I'll go with that.
I actually never saw the movies or read the books, mostly because I know I'm never getting an ending. George R.R. Martin will not finish it, and that would just drive me bonkers because I'm a completionist. What I did love about the Game of Thrones TV series when it was out was the blooper reels towards the end of the last season or two, where they had like the Starbucks cup or the bottle of water that somebody set on the set and they forgot. And so it's got this medieval setting and you just see this Starbucks cup. And then all the memes that spawned about ye olden Starbuckians or whatever, like they just went nuts with the memes. It was hilarious. Worth the price.
What a time. That was a great time to be a meme lord, man.
Absolutely. So like that, they have that book about love languages. Memes are mine. Like the darker the humor, the better. And my only rule, and this is the rule we apply for the podcast as well, because we are apolitical, is, but did you laugh? So I can share left-leaning memes, right-leaning. I don't care. If it made me laugh, we share it.
I feel like Gladiator, anytime I share a meme and it offends most, but a few people get the joke, I'm like, are you not entertained? That was my role during COVID, was to be a meme lord, a shit talker.
That's when I started doing the memes too, just because, like, I took a business class in college, and one of the things they told us, if politics isn't your business, keep your business or your politics out of your business, because you're just going to piss off potential customers. And then they had that famous interview of Michael Jordan. They interviewed him in the early aughts about the 90s, where arguably there were more racial issues than there are now. They asked him why he didn't make a stance then, and his answer was because white kids buy my shoes too. And I'm like, capitalist, I love it, and that's sort of been my guiding philosophy going forward about business. So instead, I just shared memes, because why not? And we had people buy our stuff just because we made them laugh with our memes. They don't even read the genres I write in. But like, I'm going to buy your book just because you made me laugh, and I'll donate it to the local library. I'm like, hey, you paid. I'm good.
They're making that logical assumption that the humor that we display on the show is also tied into our writing. And I guess it's kind of right, except for me. I write about space Romans, and they're all dicks. So,
I mean, that's pretty on par with the real Romans. I saw a complaint once Michael Williamson had about generally when people write Romans, They call him Mad Mike. He's a Bane author. Is that it's generally too nice. Like you got to amp the dick factor up by 10 to get pretty accurate to how they treated people. Unless you were a Roman and then maybe you liked it. I don't know.
Not my guys. They're all Supremus Maximus Dickus.
So here's the trick. Here's the trick with sharing memes, because I've come to find that this works for me, especially with JR. But the trick is you have to share them on your social medias first before you ever post them to JR, because he will drop them on X, on Insta, on Facebook before you can even finish hitting the send button to him. So I'm like, okay, these are all about horror. These are all about horror. This is all Stabby. Stabby needs to post these first.
In my defense, the Twitter is our collective, the three of us Twitter, because it's for the podcast. I don't have a personal Twitter, so the podcast is sharing them.
Stabby has to post the horror ones first before JR can.
All right. Yes, I do that to everybody though. Sometimes I remember to tag where I got it from. Sometimes I don't. Memes were meant to be stolen.
Stolen from Apple. Stolen from Nick Garber.
Stolen from Stabby.
Sometimes I do tag you though, so I at you, right? As the kids say. My goal is not to have to use the Urban Dictionary ever again. So if we could speak English like grown folks, people on the internet, I would appreciate that. Because sometimes the Urban Dictionary scares me a little bit. All right, with that out of the way, one of the crying shames of growing up and becoming an adult is they stop asking you the important questions, Professor Chris. So, what is your favorite dinosaur?
Other than myself, being a lifelong Mystery Science Theater 3000 fan, I would have to pick Gamera.
Okay, go on. Why is that?
Gamera is friend to all children. He is really neat. He is full of turtle meat, and it is in some of the most for people who think Godzilla is too highbrow. You kind of get into Gamera, and I kind of respect people whose ambition in life was to do a less cerebral mid-period Godzilla film. You know, they looked at Godzilla versus the Smog Monster and they said, "Too much for me, man. What can I do that's like a notch or two below that?" So, Gamera jumps the low bar in my heart.
Okay, that's fair. All right, and because we are civilized human beings here at the Blasters and Blades podcast, we are no longer knuckle dragging troglodytes. Coffee or tea, and how do you take it?
Raised on Southern sweet tea, the diabetes has kind of pushed
diabetes in a cup. I love it.
Yes. So I tea may be like the great lost love of my youth, but now that I'm in my 50s, it's coffee IVs every morning.
I can appreciate that.
Hey, there you go.
Don't murder people juice. I was
very upset. We had to grocery shop today, and I had only had half a cup of coffee before we went.
So the problem is you can't go without your coffee or without having eaten to a grocery store because you end up spending more.
I did both today.
And then the other thing is they know if you go in and out, you don't spend as much money. That's why they constantly reorganize. So you constantly have to go around the store to find what you want. There's science behind that. So that's the other thing. If you know they just changed it, you got to be like fortify yourself and not be hungry.
Did you ever notice that when you go into a Home Depot, you have to go past the flooring and the appliance to get to the plumbing?
Maybe they expect you to make mistakes when you do the plumbing.
Nope. It's completely set up so that way if you're just there for a drain plug, you're going to stop and see that cool Samsung refrigerator that has a TV on the front.
I don't like the smart electronics.
If you're trying to fix your shitter, nobody cares about flooring or tile. I want to go and fix my dumper so I can take a shit in my own house in peace.
Nick, you're supposed to be looking at us, the audience, not your wife. I mean, I know she's pretty and everything, but
I said
straight at the camera. Yeah, it's I don't know. I get why they do it. Although the one that's dangerous is the Lowe's near us has this place that makes Philly cheesesteaks, and it's right in the little cart right outside. Dominic's, it's called. And I could have just eaten a full like Thanksgiving meal, like food coma. I walked by there and I swear to God, I'm hungry again. Just from this, I know I don't need any food, but it just smells so freaking good.
So you'll get a kick out of this, JR. I was working for Home Depot for 8 years. I was with the same store for 6 of them. Wow. And absolutely nobody in my store could cook for some reason. Or they just didn't want to. So every season they'd have me out with the Traeger smoking different things. And if you came by the store around Thanksgiving and Christmas, I was smoking turkeys. And it was just so that everybody could see how good the Traeger was at smoking turkey. And we'd wind up giving the turkey away. You would have just got a free turkey.
Oh.
Or hot dogs or hamburgers, whatever I was cooking.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And like I said, you don't get to be a recovering. You don't get to be a recovering fatty without liking food. So, and I get it. I grew up in the South too. The diabetes in a cup. It's got a table wine. It's got to hold the spoon up. It's got so much sugar in it. I get it. I get in that argument. My first publisher was British, so he'd always get on me the way the Americans drink tea because he's like, it's supposed to be hot. I'm like, no, you Brits are getting it wrong. That's why you lost. But,
we only knew it tasted good as cold because we threw it in the harbor.
So I actually, when I signed my first contract with his publishing company, they lost. I think it was FedEx that does international. Whichever one does international, they lost the contract. I had to mail them a signed copy because that was what the British law required, like physically signed copy. And because they lost it, they were like bending over backwards. They're like, JR, we're going to make this right. Just reprint it, sign it, send it to him. You're going to be okay. We'll cover it. I'm not going to worry about the wait for this because it's our mistake. And they know contracts obviously are time sensitive. And so because of that, I sent him a Lipton's tea bag included, and I was like, stop by Boston Harbor, break, found this and thought you might want it, break. And that's how I signed it. Like it was an old telegram style. So he sends me now every 4th of July, happy colonial treason day you. And then he uses some words that are not user-friendly for the podcast, but he starts with a T and ends with a T. Yeah, it's that ought to be on it.
Nick bought me a shirt, and it's a crescent moon. It says Salem established 18 whatever, and it says Salem you missed one. And I'm not mad at this shirt at all. Like most women would be like, really, babe? Really? But I am not mad at this shirt. What I'm mad about is this shirt came from China. It made it through customs in LA. It came through customs in LA. I live in San Diego. You think they just throw it on a truck, right? No, they put it on a plane to Grand Prairie, Texas. Now, Oklahoma. Before it comes back to LA.
Your shirt is on tour.
It's on
There's a reason I got you the cup I did for your birthday. It's a picture of 2 skeletal hands, Professor, and it says, love me like my demons do.
Oh, that's sweet.
I love that cup so much because even if I forget my coffee is sitting there an hour later, it's still hot.
Nick, I will get you the lady. She sells everything through her Instagram. I will get you the link for her, and you can like spoil her.
I think you're positioning yourself to take my wife when I die.
No. I'm going to give you the link so you could buy her more and win her love. At a time. Nick, you know I can't handle getting stabbed like that. No, your wife is safe. Like my liver, I only got one. I can't afford to like lose it to a straight butcher knife.
I'm wearing my soft armor around the house for Christ's
All right. So this isn't about the 3 of us. So we're going to try to pretend like we've got a guest or something, like we've done this before. So, Professor, we're adding a new religion question only because it's you and what your Kickstarter is. We'll get into in a minute. So, what is your favorite horror movie or franchise?
Oh, goodness. My dear father named me Christopher Lee McGlothlin, and I had some mixed feelings about coming into the world all beautiful and new, and my father saying, let's name him after the guy who plays Dracula. But since then I've come to embrace it and love it and appreciate it. So I from the beginning I have been a big fan of Hammer films, and everything horror wise kind of branched off from that. So and I'm blessed to be writing about a Hammer piece, about a Hammer film, a piece for a Hammer film in the book we're currently kickstarting. So back to my first love.
So you almost like it was foretold that you would be a horror fan, is what you're saying.
Yes. And oddly enough, my if I had to pick a favorite of their output, it would be in America, it was The Devil's Bride. In England, it was The Devil Rides Out. And my mother-in-law saw that, liked the name of the female lead, Tanith, and named my wife that. And we first met, and we're like, "Whoa, this must have been meant to be." And I can honestly tell people I married the Devil's Bride.
And what was the British version of that title?
In Britain, it was The Devil Rides Out, but they changed it because they thought Americans would think it was a Western.
Oh, okay, I can see that. Okay, well, because you guys are horror nuts, which is why I made sure you came on you're normally supposed to be working today, Nick. You and Stabby get to answer this. So whichever one of you wants to unmute first, favorite horror movie or franchise. Now you're both muted. That doesn't work.
Yeah, she goes, as she's muting, she's like, "You go ahead, honey," and I'm already muted. I was already muted. I was ladies first. I know you do. So much to say.
All right, Nick, come on, bring us home. You got this.
I'm a Friday the 13th guy. Actually, that's a lie. It's a tie between Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th. I saw them at relatively the same time. Loved them both for different reasons. I like the idea of the silent, fast walking, but somehow gets you like Usain Bolt type killer. And I like the guy that when you're in your most vulnerable place, which is sleeping in your dreams, that guy can get you. So, and as that series progressed, you had to get dream defense and dream fighting and those types of things. I just thought that was really cool. And then with Jason, he's just the immovable object, the unstoppable force. And I just love me some Jason Voorhees.
All right, so before Stabby goes, just because I know she's got a lot of opinions, which is why we like her, I'm going to say mine is more comedy, but I like So I Married an Axe Murderer. I think that counts.
Oh, that's one of my favorite Mike Myers movies. Did you reach around and scratch Coy Tower?
Mike Myers can rock a kilt. That's all I'm saying. Like, he's got the knees for it.
We have to paper down. There's a paper down.
All right. So, Stabby, now that we've got all of us out of the way, the important person, go ahead and answer this question. Favorite horror movie or franchise?
I don't have one favorite. We should know that by now. But
I know you love all your kids equally.
I love all my slashers equally. All of them.
Liar.
But I did start my horror love with Michael Myers and Halloween and my girl Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, come on. It was just so perfect. And he never ran, but he still caught up with you. It was just perfection. But then you have Scream, where it makes fun of itself. And I absolutely love that about the entire Scream franchise, is that it's just constantly making fun of itself. But then you have the Conjuring universe, which is more paranormal than slasher. And they did that perfectly. Like, just beautifully. Every jump scare, every ghost that pops up in your face, it just was gorgeously done. And then that leads you into the Insidious universe, which was also just gorgeous because the colors were so muted. And then you would have these pops of blue and these pops of red, and it was just stunning. So I can never pick just one, but my love started with Michael Myers.
Okay. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, first, the Kickstarter that we're doing today, I thought it might be easiest to just show the video that you have on your Kickstarter page, and then we'll jump back and we'll talk to it. But it was a good one, so you did good. All right,
Thank you. I've always thought I should pull an Iron Man 3 and hire somebody else to be me for video purposes, but thank you.
But you rocked it. We're going to let the audience decide. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, roll.
Hello, my name is Professor Christopher McGlothlin, and I am the creative pit boss of Ghost Show Press, and as you can see, a part-time yacht captain in addition to everything else that I do. Thank you for checking out our Kickstarter. If you're not familiar with what we do, we are primarily known for a series of books known as Everyone's Gone to the Movies. Previously, we have turned out transgressive horror. We have turned out subversive sci-fi. And we have also published fantastic flops. 3, as you can see, very real books that we were very, very happy to deliver to some very, very, very happy and very generous and very wonderful Kickstarter backers. And really the only thing this picture is missing is a 4th book, which is why we're glad you're here, because number 4, Transgressive Horror Resurrected. Yes, we're going back to the Fright film well for the 4th book. But we are keeping not only that theme, but we're also bringing along the same humor and insight that you've come to know from the previous 3 volumes. Many familiar faces and some exciting new talent, all continuing our mission of looking at this world where you can pretty much watch anything ever made and finding out, well, what if I'm in the mood for something different? What if I want to see something unlike anything else in this genre? Or where did this long-standing genre trope begin? Well, that's what our series is about, and we're taking it back to the scare film genre to talk about the scare films that either made or broke the rules, that are worth your time, that are off the beaten path, that will give you a little something extra for your dollars and your streaming time. And we would love to have your support on this one. You can get the books in physical format. You can get them in PDF. You can get them in various ebook formats. Whatever you prefer to read in, we will supply you with that particular medium. You can also, if you're feeling particularly generous and you believe in what we do and you want to make sure that 4th book actually comes out, you can support us at a little higher levels. We'll be happy to thank you by name in the book. And we're also opening the doors to our own particular little cinematic chocolate factory. Like, for instance, if you've always wanted to join us on the Ghost Show podcast for just a little extra, we'll be happy to have you on with the guests that you pick and talk about the topic that you want to discuss. If you've looked at the outstanding lineup for Transgressive Horror Resurrected and you've said to yourself, this is just one film short of perfection, I really wish they would do blank. Well, guess what? You can contribute at the proper level, and we'll write about the film that you pick. So there you go. You can literally make this book what you want it to be. Maybe you're brand new to this, and if you are, hey, double extra thanks for checking us out. Maybe you missed one or more of these. Well, you know what? You can back us here, make sure the 4th book happens, and get any or all of these at the lowest possible price. And at the end of the day, I guess the main thing that I'm really, really proud to do here and would really be grateful if you're just supporting is we are Ghost Show Press is a small company, but we are a mighty voice in the name of creators' rights. Our writers do not get rewritten without their consent. They don't get re-edited without their consent. They're not replaced by a machine. They're all living human beings. Our covers are all images that actual humans made. I am, believe it or not, a real human, so it's edited and published by a real human with real human gratitude, real human thoughts, real human feelings, and real humans in mind. So if you just like the idea of small independent voices flourishing in this day and age, any amount you pledge is a step toward making that happen. And thanks for checking us out. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and your reactions to the book, and thank you for making it happen.
All righty. Thank you for sticking with us.
But God, I want that guy's movie collection.
Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude, and welcome back. So, first off, I didn't know you were a yacht boat captain. You need a first mate. Yes. I know Gilligan.
Yes. I am a man with hands as soft as silk who pays someone else to do all the boat stuff.
Oh, you have a Nick to work as a crewman.
So with that out of the way, all right. So first off, what is transgressive horror?
Transgressive horror came about during COVID when everybody was streaming everything, and when they weren't streaming everything, they were talking about what they were streaming and please send me some more stuff to stream. And I'm blessed to know a lot of incredibly talented writers, and they were writing such great stuff for free. And that combined with the people that were struggling with something to watch, I thought I should bring these two together. So the series launched with the notion of, my mission brief was pick a movie that people need to see because there's something different about it. It could be the way it was marketed, the cinematography, the story, whatever. Or if you want to do a film a lot of people have seen, tell me something no one else has ever noticed about this film. And talented people never let you down. They have done 3 books in, they have done 4, well, soon to be 4, hopefully. They have done so much more than I ever could have possibly have conceived of on my own. There's so many moments, but we were doing the 3rd one. A friend of mine, Justin Achille, was writing about the mid-'80s MTV action film Streets of Fire. And his essay opens with a playlet. And it's his version of the cocaine party that led to this film being commissioned. And just the very notion of it tickled me. And when the producer finally came in, and Justin's line is, snorts a line of cocaine. Hey, have we done Zardoz yet? Fuck, let's do Zardoz. And like, no, we've already done Zardoz. Fuck, let's do this movie then. And I'm like, where else are you going to get that? I mean, just that's the kind of people that work for me. And I'm supremely blessed by that. So yes, so it's an incredibly diverse range of incredibly diverse talents saying offbeat things about horror movies. And that's kind of our brief for Transgressive Horror Resurrected.
So, I mean, every time you feel bad about yourself, you just have to remind yourself that somebody greenlit Sharknado.
They greenlit all of them.
3 of them. 3
right? I'm just waiting for Jelly Gator NATO to come out of Florida. Like jellyfish and gators. All right, so that is I wasn't sure if transgressive was a certain type of horror or whatever, because you used subversive for one of yours as well, and I know that's a subgenre niche kind of thing. So I was just checking.
Yes, yes. It popped into my head, and I, I mean, part of the trick of marketing anything horror is to make it sound naughtier than what you've actually got. So yes, sure. Yes. I figure transgressive horror would make people think that, I've gone full Eli Roth, but we do a Jean-Luc Godard film in the first one. So yeah, we have a very broad view of it. As long as you're breaking the rules, there you go. And so there.
You never want to go full Eli Roth. There's many countries he's not allowed into anymore.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
The entire eastern bloc of Europe is off limits to Eli Roth.
Yes.
For those of us who don't know, who the heck is Eli Roth?
Oh my God. I'm going to reach through the computer and strangle you, JR. He's okay. Hold on. Let me calm down first. All right. So he did the Hostel movies. Never seen those. That makes you not want to leave the United States ever. He had a series on Shudder called what was it called? Legends of Horror. It was like an 8-part series. He goes into the different subgenres inside horror. Vampires, ghosts, zombies, whatever. He was also in Inglourious Bastards. He was the Jew Bear. So he's a well-rounded director. He specializes in horror because he likes it. What was the last one he did? Didn't he just do what was that one with Batista?
Neverland.
No, he did that too.
And then he did Thanksgiving.
I did Thanksgiving. That was another good one. Maximum Cabin Fever.
Probably talking about those a little more than Neverland in the future, I'm guessing.
They'll get to it. It'll get its due. It always does. He's a great director, and he really has a great eye in how he captures his product, essentially.
So we talked about what the transgressive horror is, but what is this collection, and how did you come up with the idea?
Well, like I said, it was just an idea to get my talented friends to monetize what they were doing for free. And if we could guide some curious people toward underserved films that would help broaden their artistic palette, we would feel like we were doing kind of, like the pinnacle thing you can do if you're gonna criticize films or comment on films, is just to help people find the weird ones and the good ones. And we're a bunch of weirdos pointing people toward weird entertainment, I guess, maybe the best way to sum it all up. See, there you go. We've all come home tonight. Here you go.
I call it the Lord's work.
Amen.
Doing the Lord's work.
My sister no longer asks me for my romance novel book suggestions because my love of horror bleeds into my dark romance. And she's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like, give it a shot. Think of it like Halloween meets something spicy. and she's coming around, but she no longer asks for recommendations.
You're kind of like when I watched the Jake and the Neverland Pirates with my kids when they were little, and the character stole something, and Jake was like, works for Peter Pan. It's like, no, we don't steal, Billy. We're pirates. That's not what we do. And I had to pause, and I'm like, yes, that's exactly what pirates do. So when you have these romance, I'm like, no. The mafia aren't the good guys. They're not the cuddly teddy bears that just want to give you love. They want to bury your body.
About humans having sex with the four horsemen.
So I don't know if this is in the anthology, but when the Pooh Bear stuff came in the common domain, right? It was public domain.
Yeah.
You enjoy the Blood and Honey movie that angered some people? I thought it was hilarious. I laughed.
I love that movie. I can't wait to watch the sequel. I want to see Evil Eeyore.
One of the great things about being 56 is you have such a short list of things that anger you anymore. I just looked at this. It said, "Who is this for?" Honestly, that's what I say about a lot of entertainment. This was made for the person that wrote and directed it, and probably a number of people that could fit in his living room. And as someone who's writing very niche film commentary, I say that with no hate in my heart, because we live in an age where you can kind of do the big internet version of Andy Hardy. Hey, let's go down to the bar and put on a show. But it was just one of the mini entertainment that's like who was dying to see this? Like it fell into the mental hole that Tron 3 fell into. Like the first two bombed. What is the argument for the third film in the series where none of them have ever made a dime? It baffled me it existed. But again, that's no hate. That's no disrespect. Just that was my reaction.
I've been to both of those casting parties as a fan.
Here.
Because everybody has a genre or a series that they love and they feel connected to, and like nobody else gets it. Like Blood and Honey, it was morbid curiosity when I watched it. I'm like, this is so effed up. Like this is, I hate it so much, but I love it at the same time. It's really weird. I kind of hate myself, but it was entertaining, and it entertained me for about an hour and 8 minutes or whatever, how long it was long. But then they made a sequel. And I'm like, oh, you're giving me evil Tigger and Eeyore? You son of a bitch, I'm in.
I just liked it because it was like a weird take. I think it was just kids from the 90s will laugh at anything, like dark and more. Like we're the last of the latchkey kids, right? Like people that are born in the 80s and 90s. So like for me, it was just sort of mocking everything. That's why the Scream franchises hit so hard. And after the Scream 1 came out, why they had all those like the spoof of like the I Know You Did with Summer. They did a spoof of that one. Like all the satire of the classic horror came out because our generation takes nothing seriously. Not even
Gen X is the ultimate shit talkers, man. Like we don't take anything serious. We were 30 at 13 and we're 30 at 50. We just never aged. We've been the same the whole time. We're just complete nihilists. We're just
why we never aged? It's because we grew up around our parents' Aquafina in the air. We couldn't breathe, and it just like stunted our skin.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Aquanet.
I keep getting
a water, man. Aquafina is an actress and a water. Spelled
okay. Well, you knew what I meant, people. I get that wrong all the time, and she corrects me and laughs at me all the time. Like my brain
but we
just
had to specify for those that didn't understand.
This is what you call TBI brains. Sometimes it happens. All right. Yeah. So you saw people online during COVID. Yes. They were writing these reviews because everyone was at home, bored, and people were trying to entertain because they were bored too. And so how did that transition into you? Like, let's do a collection of horror movie commentary. Was it literally just, I want a place for all this to be in one, or was there more to it?
Well, my tabletop game writing career had come to an end. I was done with that phase of my life, and I was looking for, I wanted to write, I just didn't know what. And it's just the only thing I've devoted more of my life to than games is film. So I thought, like, this could be something that if it takes off, I could do this for a really long time and enjoy it. So there was a strong personal motivation in there, but as it went along and I just saw how my incredibly talented friends were doing these incredibly talented things. And then I got the chance to break new writers, to give somebody else a break, and at that point, I'd been writing various things for 20 years, and the idea of being able to give somebody their break and help them along, and just the realization I had learned some things that other people could benefit from, just being able to play a mentor role in it. That was a great thing. And then we funded, thank God. It got out there and got a bigger response than I ever expected. I got a message when we were raising money for the second one from a gentleman in Ukraine, and who thanked me for putting out physical books. And he said, because with the bombing and the shelling and the missiles, internet is kind of hit or miss here. But as long as I have a Kindle, I can still read your books, and I can enjoy the writing, and I can see the movies in my head. And it's like, thank you. Man. And honestly, every time I see him pledging on a new Kickstarter, and I know that he's still out there to read our books, I'm just so thankful for that. And it makes me feel it makes me see value in doing this that I never anticipated.
I could see that. That's one of the things you on the one hand, you think about it because there's a tad bit of arrogance, and anyone's going to put their stuff out there. But on the other, the idea that you're actually making like a real difference with what you do, like that's kind of humbling at the same time.
Oh yeah. And just, like, oh, I had no idea this film existed. Having been a nerd since the 70s in rural Virginia, I grew up dreaming that nerdy things could someday be a party everybody was invited to. So I sort of have this baseline of like, hey, look at this cool thing I found. And honestly, that could be the mission statement for these books. Look at this cool movie that I found. Oh, absolutely. And my writers bring me films I haven't seen. It's just been good for my cinematic palette.
Well, that's why I just backed your campaign. I wanted all four books in print, because I'm a print guy. I like sitting on the couch or at the fire pit in the backyard and reading about this. But I'm open to things that I've missed in my horror journey. And I get super excited when I hear about, hey, have you heard about this movie? Shit, no. Like, where was this? And then I do the deep dive into the internet, useful tool.
Yes,
Captain America, frozen in ice for 75 years. Internet's so helpful. Where I get to discover these new films, and I get to watch them with the same just new eyes that someone saw it when it originally came out. And Stabby's with me on that one. We've watched mostly everything on Shudder now, because when we first got it, everything was new. So we watched it all. We do a list every year. We've been doing that for 4 years now. We usually average around 400 films a year.
Whoa.
And a lot of them are repeats that we watched the year previous, but there's at least, I would say, a good 20% that are stuff we haven't seen. So, and we've watched them all, from the F- movies to the B++,
No, in all defense, like some of the cheesy ones can be some of the best like hidden gems. Like the number of like Nazis turned soldiers into vampires or werewolf movies that came out in the 80s that were cringy and cheesy, but were enjoyable as hell. Like the cheesier the better sometimes. Like there's room for B movies, I think.
Oh yeah, we watched a couple last night. We watched The Night Shift, Forget Me Not, Island Escape, like Cemetery Man. We went back to that. We had seen it before, and then Joe Bob put it on the last drive-in. We watched it again. And the first time I watched it, I'm like, man, this thing's totally giving me Dylan Dog feels, you know. And then Joe Bob comes on, and they're like, yeah, the guy who wrote this also wrote Dylan Dog, and I'm like, hold it, holy shit.
So when it comes to horror movies, obviously, like this is a collection of essays where individuals review various parts of it, the good, the bad, the ugly, part review, part love letter. Is there anything that makes a horror movie stand out for you? As one of the reviewers, obviously your thoughts are going to be in there too. So what makes a horror movie good for you?
Oh, that's such a great question. To me, the mark of a good horror film is just something that can take you out of your surroundings. You know, I mean, there's nothing wrong with hyper meta watching a film and just breaking it down and laughing at the boom mics and things like that. But a film that can take you to its particular time and place, that's the mark of a great film. You know, the way that a black and white Universal, especially if you turn the lights down, can put you in that weird conception of Transylvania, or the way if you watch more than 3 Hammer films, you're seeing the same 3 sets and you can identify them, but you don't care. You're totally buying into it. That to me is it makes for a great horror film.
The perfect example of what you were just talking about is my son is 14 and he's been watching horror movies with me for his whole life.
Awesome.
Like, his whole life. Awesome. And he's like, Mom, what movies freak you out the most? Like, because nothing seems to scare you. Ooh. And I was like, let me introduce you to The Strangers. Ooh. And he kind of was like, why? I'm like, because you never lock the door at night. And I need you to understand something. Because we live on 2 acres of land up in the mountains of San Diego. We have no neighbors. And the only thing you hear after dark is crickets, frogs, and occasionally a bobcat. And I was like, let me explain to you why you need to make sure the doors are locked. So I made him watch The Strangers.
Ooh.
That whole night he kept going to the back door like I'm like,
Mask will be here Tuesday.
I was like, and do you understand now why I'm constantly on you about locking the doors? And he's like, but what was their motive? And I was like, didn't you hear them? They were just home. I run the business from the house, man. I'm just home.
Yeah.
Cannot.
Okay.
Right in it.
So what movie did you review for this collection?
For this one, I went back to it was made in 72, didn't actually screen till 74. I went to the very, very, very end of the very, very, very long-running Hammer Films Frankenstein series. And I did the last one, Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. And I went with that one because I got a chance to rewatch it not too long ago. And I realized that it's the only sequel whose fundamental message is stop making sequels. You know, we should really stop. It's almost like a film series begging you to put it out of its misery. It's a fine, underrated film. It's extremely well made, but it's all about how the Baron is continuing to commit ever greater atrocities for reasons even he doesn't remember anymore. And even the people that have believed in him and dug up bodies and done like unspeakable crimes, even they're questioning what is the point of all this? It doesn't, and the meta level there. I had to write about that because being 50s and a part-time boat captain, it hit me at the time this film was being made. Probably my all-time favorite band, Steely Dan, was laying down their first album and their best-known song, "Do It Again," which is all about people who keep making the same bad decisions over and over and over and over again. And the synchronicity between my favorite band and my favorite film studio and some of my favorite actors, too much to pass up. So it's all about the sequel that says don't make any more sequels. Because what more transgressive idea could you have in horror than let's stop making these? And they did.
Yeah. So are all the reviews that are being done, are they all professional movies, or did you get some indie movies? Because nowadays with technology, like indie movies, like I use Dust, the YouTube channel is a perfect example. Like what independent creators with a little bit of money, but not much, and modern technology can do blows my mind. And some of what they're putting out is better than what Hollywood is.
Indeed. Not in this particular volume. In volume 2, Jason Walters, who is one of the great raconteurs ever to live in any era, found this film called Death Machines, which only exists online. I think the total budget wouldn't get a substitute teacher in a high school classroom these days. But he makes a marvelous case in about 2,000 words for why this film will immediately restore your faith in imaginative cinema.
Okay.
So yeah, we are completely open to technology and what on the grand scale of things are small efforts, because we're a small effort ourselves. We love the underdogs that are kind of in the same spot we are.
That's why I was thinking something like Range 15, which Black Rifle Coffee, Matt Best put out, which is basically like a veteran's take on a horror. Like the old joke, Harry Potter would have been a lot shorter if he had a pistol, or Lord of the Rings if they wrote like the joke kind of thing. It's that kind of satirical take on horror with a bunch of like battle-hardened veterans that are just a little bit nuts.
Take a bunch of drunk rangers and put them in the zombie apocalypse and just watch the fun ensue.
And then the cool thing was that they did with that one, at least, was that they hired some of the veterans that were like horribly disfigured in the war, and they let them do the extra effects so they could, like, for once, that was like made them the cooler one, because it also made it obviously more realistic. But
they had Danny Trejo, man. That was awesome.
Dude, like, yeah, that guy's awesome. But yeah, so I don't know, like, you would consider that necessarily like top tier professional movie, but something like that could have been reviewed if it was suggested.
It's just whatever strikes you enough to write about. Like in the current one, Caleb Batznell picked a film called The Jar. And I don't know if you're familiar with the internet movie review site Red Letter Media, but like they've reviewed like thousands of films. They declared The Jar to be the worst film they ever saw, and they actually burned the VHS on air. So, yeah, I mean, like guys that have seen that will go out of their way to find genuinely terrible movies. This is the one that made them go, we can't even.
I want to see them all.
But Caleb has 2,500 words to convince you why. At the very least, it won't be like anything else you ever saw. And I love stuff like that.
Okay. So obviously this is just one man's opinion, but if you had to pick the most underrated horror movie of all times, what would it be for you?
Messiah of Evil.
Messiah of Evil. Okay. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah. It was made by a couple named Gloria and Willard Hike, who were film school brats alongside Steven Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola and all those people. And they were classmates and good friends with George Lucas. And they got an opportunity, like all new filmmakers, to start off by doing a low budget horror film. But having come from USC Film School and full of all these like film school arty European things, they set out to try to do an arty exploitation film. And they were caught between the pressures of their backers running out of money before they finished it, and their old buddy George Lucas calling them and saying, I have a deal here in Hollywood. I'm working on this film called American Graffiti. you guys, I need some help with the script. Why don't you stop doing this $10,000 horror movie? Come to Hollywood. I can give you tons of money and you can work on a real feature-length big studio production. So eventually the money ran out and they went back to Hollywood and helped Lucas get Graffiti done. And then their backers took the footage they had shot and released it themselves. So it's kind of incoherent in places because you can clearly see where they, scene missing. But the thing about it, between the arty touches and its own incompleteness, it's the closest thing that I have ever seen on screen to seeing somebody having filmed a nightmare. It only has like a nightmare level of logic. The characters will do things you will only do in a nightmare. And it's just so full of atmosphere. There's like almost no score. And they've just done a beautiful Blu-ray restoration on it. And it is still, it gets under your skin. If you catch another, especially if you watch it by yourself with the lights out, it will get to you. I mean, you kind of have to switch off the logic center of your brain a little bit, but if you embrace the nightmare of it, it's an extraordinary piece of work, shot for about $50,000. So yes, I can't say enough good things about Messiah of Evil. It really hit me like no film has in years. Can't say enough good stuff about it. Now, and please don't be thrown up by the fact that Gloria and Willard Hike are best known as the couple behind Howard the Duck.
Is that a bad thing?
Oh yeah. But before they got conned into Howard the Duck, this is what they did, and it's worth your time.
Was Howard the Duck a kid show? I don't know that one.
Howard the Duck was an attempt to film an offbeat Marvel comic in 1986, and it's widely regarded as one of the worst films ever made, and it kind of earns that. And
and he makes a reappearance in Guardians of the Galaxy,
and under much better circumstances. Much better circumstances.
Hanging out with Cosmo the dog.
Yes.
Okay. So, Stabby, what about you? What's your favorite, most underrated horror movie out there for you?
So many good ones. Because you could go with Death Spa. That's always great. Who doesn't love that classic?
Our local Alamo Draft House does a Halloween party every year, and they show you 4 films and don't tell you in advance. And they sprang Death Spa on us. I got to see it on a big screen, and oh god, so much fun! Yes,
wasn't it such a good movie? I love that one. I'm not huge on elevated horror, but Hereditary got me a little bit. I was like, okay, but I think if I have to go with my favorite that I have to touch on every single year, I have to go back to The Toxic Avenger.
Oh, I know that one. I feel like I know that reference.
See, I'm a sucker for an underdog as well, and he is like the ultimate underdog because he is just teased and mocked and put down, and then he just becomes this big monster in a tutu.
Okay.
So I let him do that.
Nick, do you have a favorite underrated horror movie?
Yeah, I think Midnight Meat Train with
Terror Train too.
What the hell is his name?
Professor's getting happy. Did you write about this one? Is it one of the ones that got an article?
My local Alamo did another surprise marathon, and all they told us is we would see 4 train-themed horror movies, and that was one of the ones they sprang on us. And I elbowed my friend when Bradley Cooper's name came up. I'm like, well, that's one more Oscar winner than I was expecting to see tonight.
Yeah,
but
Bradley Cooper
probably my favorite Clive Barker adaptation of all time. It's really something.
Yeah, I'm a huge Hellraiser fan. I'm a huge Clive Barker fan. I introduced my youngest daughter, who's a horror fan now. She came in. I thought she was asleep. It's like 11 o'clock at night. I'm watching the first Hellraiser. And she's like, "Who's the guy with the pins in his face?" So I'm like, "Come here, I'll educate you." So, and she fell asleep to that movie, which means she's probably more psychotic than I am. God bless her. But at that point, I was like, I'm either father of the year or I'm the worst dad ever, because she watched. And she's like, "Is that a real puzzle box? Can we get one of those?" I'm like, "No, you're going to unlock hell." What are you doing?
I think fun. It's kind of weird how what we expose what kids are exposed to affects what they like. And I just keep wondering if I like ruined mine because I didn't know any lullabies to sing them to sleep. So I used army cadences. And if you know what some of those are about, I'm like, but I was told it didn't matter what we said. It was the tone of our voice.
Most of our songs are about us missing body parts, bro.
I know. So if you're
Timmy
in trouble,
ain't got no legs. I'm calling a medevac. Hoorah, hoorah, hoorah. You know, it's like it's so morbid.
So are any of the horror movies that are out there, are any of them actually geared to scare younger audiences in an age appropriate way? Is that a thing?
Scary stories to tell in the dark.
Those are
Goosebumps.
Are those out of big screen too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Goosebumps, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. And I started my son with It. I started him with Pennywise off the bat. So
what about you, Professor?
You know, one of the things that warms my heart these days is I've just recently connected with Svengoolie fandom, the people who don't let 8 o'clock Saturday night on MeTV pass without seeing Sven and what classic horror film that he's showing, and the number of grandparents and parents that say that, you know, I can watch fantastic material with my kids and knowing that, you know, nobody is going to be tripping over their own intestines. And I'm just thinking like, wow, this could be a gateway drug to the next generation. And that to me, well, I mean, just something that brings so much joy to people in the films that I was raised on. That's something that will hit me right in the heart right there.
Okay. So has it already been decided what movies are going to be reviewed for this anthology of movie reviews?
We have 34 locked in place. We're doing everything from the 1922 silent film, whose title I will probably mispronounce, Haksan. I should probably go with the American title, Witchcraft Through the Ages. And Lisa Morton, who is a real-life ghost hunter and past president of the Horror Writers Association, pitched me that one. And she said, how would you like a silent film from 1922 where a bunch of devil worshippers lined up to kiss Satan's ass? And I'm like, write that, baby. Write that. And we go all the way from that to Godzilla -1, which, you know, it just seems like yesterday I was seeing that in the theater. So yes, and so many things in between. Quiet little gems like Paper House, which is this British film about the horror that two children can experience in isolation. I have a guy explaining why Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a horror film, and I was like, and he said, surely, Professor, you don't believe those children actually made it out of that chocolate factory alive? And I'm like, write that.
Okay.
So yeah,
I can believe that.
A lot of cases. But we've had 2 backers who have backed us at a level where they get to pick the movie. And when this funds, please, Lord, I will be in touch with them and asking them what they want to see. And if this sounds like a good deal to any of your listeners, we've still got plenty of those reward levels left open. So and in fact, you know, I honestly, the films that our backers ask us to do are always some of my favorites. So we're at 36 and counting, and it could get bigger if the backers will make it happen.
One of my favorite scary movies, I guess, don't really watch them, but the old Hitchcock's Birds.
Yes.
Black and white version. That still freaks me out. It's because it's like, it wasn't like there was just no rhyme or reason to it. It was the unknown, even when you saw the birds, and it was psychological horror as opposed to just blood and gore on the screen. And the actors actually had to actually act. They couldn't just like, oh, look, blood and gore on the screen.
Well, poor Tippi Hedren. Hitch was actually throwing birds at her. It was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Acting in the loosest sense at that point.
Well, that's like that in Poltergeist when she's in the pool and she's freaking out because of the skeletons. They told her right then that they were real. That they were real skeletons. And she didn't know until she was already in the muck and the mud with them, and they started rolling, and they're like, hey, by the way, those are real dead bodies. And that's when she freaked out and started screaming. And I think those are some of the best ones when you can do something like that.
The best for the audience, maybe not for the mental health of the actors or actresses. But like that reminds me when you're talking about them throwing birds at the actress of like that one comedy bit, like who knew turkeys couldn't fly?
WKRP, the Thanksgiving
WKRP, yeah. I show that bit to my kids every year. It's just freaking hilarious. But like, I don't know, that's kind of cool. But yeah, I like some of the old black and white Hitchcock stuff because it's more like you have to think about it a little bit, and it's the actors are actually expressive in acting. I think when we started relying on green screen technology, in some respects, some of the acting capabilities, in my opinion, have gone downhill.
See, and Nick has to keep it. Oh, go ahead.
I was at Wednesday night. I was at Alamo Draft House to watch the 1954 giant ant film Them, and on our way out, we're just talking to some people, like marveling that, like, you know, this immensely entertaining film is 80 minutes long. It's like they went in, giant ants, go. And we were kind of, you know, like there's going to be an inevitable remake, and we were thinking what they were going to do to it, and the thing like, well, they're going to have to add an hour. This thing can't be less than 2.5 hours, and you know, CGI ants, and it just kept getting worse. So yeah,
I'm a sucker for practical effects. I really am. I absolutely love Tom Savini. And his head explosions, which he always goes at trying to beat himself at, because he already has like 8 chainsaw awards for them. But what I was going to say is, because you guys were talking about Hitchcock, whenever we do Universal Studios, because we're not that far from Universal Studios Hollywood, we go up there, and I look like a little kid that's about to meet Mickey Mouse for the first time, because I see Frankenstein, and I'm like, can I go see him? Can I go see him? Can I go see him? But the last time we were there, we were doing the backlot tour, and I gave the ladies sitting in front of us in the trolley a heart attack, because as we were coming past Bates Motel and Mama's house, I was like, do you think they'd get mad if I jumped out? Nick just looked at me, and I was like, no, seriously, do you think they'd get mad if I just jumped out and went and took a tour of the hotel and then went up and saw Mama? Like, do you think they'd get mad at me? Because I'd really like to go see. I want to peek through the hole. And the ladies behind us were like, I'm pretty sure they stopped and told the attendant when we all exited the trolley later, like, just so you know, the one over there with the blue hair, I'm pretty sure she was going to jump out.
If you love Savini, have you ever seen Effects?
I have. I think I love that. But Shudder does 2 series that I was going to touch on tonight. The first one was 101 Scariest Moments.
Ooh.
And it's in a series, so you're not watching all 100 of them at the same time. And they bring in Savini, and they bring in Eli Roth, and they bring in all these people. Even her real name escapes me right now, but Elvira. They all come in and they talk about these horror movies, and that's how we find a lot of the movies we like, the off the wall ones that we would have never thought to look up. But the other one that we love, and they've done 3 of them so far, they're working on the 4th, is called Into the Darkness. And it's just them talking about 70s and 80s movies and how it changed their lives. And there's a whole section called Savini on Savini. And it is completely about him talking about himself, his art, how he got started when he was, you know, in Korea. Or not Korea, Vietnam, thank you. And then he talks about his secret blood recipe that he won't let anybody else know about, because everybody else's looks like melted red crayon and his looks like real blood, about the head explosions. And I absolutely love it.
Hold on. Is he doing the same thing they did in Poltergeist, where he's actually using real blood? Is that his secret?
No. It's a better secret. So here's the better part of the Savini recipe. I'm not giving the whole thing away because you have to go and watch it. But the trick is to add a touch of green.
Ooh.
And it gives it that real blood look. It doesn't come out looking like melted crayon. It gives it the real, there's obviously other colors in it, but he puts a touch of green in it. But when he gets, once he gets going, you could tell somebody's in the background going,
You're picturing someone with a hook on a stick like they did in the old movies.
It's so great. It's so great.
Have you seen The Stuff? That's one of the horror movies they made me watch, which I actually enjoyed, strangely enough. And you could see some of the political commentary that it was making in the 80s, and I still didn't care. I still liked it.
Well, Larry Cohen, man, all his stuff. They're wildly entertaining films, and then the politics is there if you want it. If not, you can still have a great time at the movies. And to me, that's such a gift in any filmmaker. Yeah,
they were spoofing Rush Limbaugh, but he made fun of himself too, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like he probably wouldn't have even cared if he had watched it, and I'm sure he probably did. Like the dude didn't take himself that seriously. And I can appreciate left, right, or center, whatever. People that don't take themselves too seriously are okay in my book. Which is how you get movies like the satirical horror, right? Like where they don't take. I enjoy the hell out of that stuff because it's just funny. Have you seen the horror commercial that was like one of the phone companies where it's like the kids are running from this guy and they decide to hide in this like closet full of all the chainsaws and stuff, and he's just looking at them. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you kids? And there was a car right there with keys in the ignition that they could have just driven away, right?
If you ever want to scare your kid, JR, if you ever want to scare your kid, have him watch The Stuff and then buy a jar of fluff and just kind of, because I walked out of the kitchen last week after I had a stuffed peanut butter or a fluff and peanut butter sandwich. And I had fluff all over.
I know the people that like the marshmallow stuff. For me as a kid, it was always peanut butter, peanut butter, syrup, and bananas was the sandwich that you went to. There you go.
I liked peanut butter and honey. I like peanut butter and fluff. I got that when I was living in Louisiana. They were big on making that for me, especially since I was pregnant. They were like, you need this.
Okay, so you mentioned Louisiana, so let's talk about do any of the movies that you review, are they like regional flavors? Like Louisiana has its kind of its own monsters, and I'm sure they've got some indie cult classics that are kind of set there. Do you cover any of those regional horror stories?
If a small country can be a region, I think we've done a few of those. Like I in tribute to a dear friend of mine that passed away unexpectedly. The last conversation we had, he pitched me a movie for our third book, and I wrote about his film so I could talk about this film and talk about him, because he was so talented and died far too young. I felt like I had some things that people needed to know about him, and the film that he picked was made by a religious cult, which is up in a little corner of New York. And so it's just I named it after the city that they're in, Barrytown. And so I felt like I felt like I got a little closer to the cult as I wrote this. And funny enough, my friend Jason Walters wrote about the Scientology film Battlefield Earth in Volume 3, Fantastic Flops. And then Calum, the guy who did The Jar, wrote about Somewhere in Time, which they needed a cheap way to come up with 1920. So they found an island in Michigan that had been founded by a Luddite cult that literally did not allow technology on the island. So without even meaning to, the third one kind of went being Your Town Was Taken Over by a Cult book. So yes, if you're talking about culty towns, we got that one covered.
Can we move to that town? I'm not a huge technology fan myself. Is it still available? Like real estate? An agent?
According to Calum, yes. And apparently the people Somewhere in Time, the people that really love that film, at least up till recently, they were doing an annual convention where they could just go up there and have an excuse to wear period clothes. And I think the most technological thing they do is bring a film projector so they can all watch the film together. And it all sounds sweet. That really
sounds kind of cool. Like I love to see like people that get so passionate about the films they like. Like one of the guys that was super passionate. This is a Christmas movie. The one to Shoot Your Eye Out, A Christmas Story. Like there's a guy that bought that house and turned it into a museum. Yes. And the joking behind that story is his wife divorced him over because she thought he wasted his money, and he earned so much on the museum part of it that he ended up in the win. Like, and she got none of it. So I thought that was because it was after the divorce he started making the money.
Wow.
I'll do you one even better. Have you heard of the grandma serial killer?
No. Go on.
Her name was Dorothy. I cannot remember her last name. Her name was Dorothy. She was a little grandma, wore her little red pea coat everywhere. Like, she was absolutely adorable. She killed 16 people so she could keep cashing their disability checks. She brought them into her house saying she would nurse them better, and then they would disappear, but nobody knew. And she actually went on the run while the cops were digging up her garden, because that's where she buried them. But here's the kicker. Her house was over 100 years old. So they were not allowed to knock it down. Despite how much they wanted to, they were not allowed to knock it down. It was considered a historical monument because of how old it was. Wow. So they had to wait. The state had to just sit on this property and just wait. And then finally some weird ass couple came up and was like, hey, we'll buy it. We'll buy it.
Probably got a good deal too.
Fun, but here's the greatest part. This couple, not only are they slightly weird, but they put 2 mannequins on the front porch, one dressed like Dorothy, like exactly like her, and one dressed like the detective that didn't realize that she was going to run when she asked if she could go across the street to get a cup of coffee.
Wow.
Because she's a grandma. So nobody expects the grandma. Okay. So is there, obviously we've been chatting for a little bit, and because we don't want to do any spoilers, it's mostly just us geeking out, or well, you guys geeking out over horror. Was there anything about the anthology and the Kickstarter that you think the listeners need to know? Like, what do they get if they back it? Like, can you talk about the tiers?
Well, we can send you the 4th book in any format that you want, electronic or physical or both. You can pick up the previous 3 volumes in hard physical copies or electronic or both at the lowest possible price that you can possibly get these. We will allow you on our podcast, The Ghost Show, which is kind of like this one, only with less structure. And we'll do the topic of your choice. You can also back at a level where you can pick an essay. We will do the film of your choice. I will try to get the author of your choice, and we'll hand over at least part of the book to you to explain like why you want to gush over this film. And in fact, we actually have a $400 reward level where you get all of this. You get all the books, you get all the formats, you get the podcast, you get to pick an essay, and you know, if you want to go higher than that, let me know. Like, you want to go 500, I'll come mow your lawn. You know, we can talk. It's just if this doesn't fund, I got to go back to being the guy at the monster truck show who blows himself up in a box, and you know, I'm getting a little creaky for that. So please help me and my aging knees and my wonderful creators to keep an independent creative voice alive, and we sure would appreciate it.
So this anthology has 9 days left to back, and it's $1,700-ish away from being complete, like backed. So it's close, people, and you can help out. And yeah, 1,700. I had to quickly check my math because there was a reason I was a history major. Like, all the math was done for me. So it's about $1,700 away. So a couple of you backing at the pick an essay level, and you can make a huge difference. Is there any movie that you would like to see reviewed in there that you haven't gotten a chance to touch yet?
Every time we do, any except for sci-fi, people ask me, some writers ask me for suggestions. I always advocate for Stephanie Rothman's The Velvet Vampire. Stephanie Rothman was the first woman ever to graduate the Directors Guild training program, and she immediately went to work for Roger Corman. So she learned how to make, a wildly entertaining film for like coffee money. And Velvet Vampire was the first one that she got to make on her own. And it is 2 amazing things at once. It's a great 1970s update of like the classic vampire tale, but it's completely flipped. In this one, the ancient predatory vampire is a beautiful woman who is trying to seduce this empty-headed blonde guy. And like his far more sensible girlfriend is the one who has to pull him out of this sexy danger. And and it came out in 1971, and just seeing the gender flip in 1971, and plus Rothman is another one of the, she learned from Roger Corman's, is because you're working on a budget doesn't mean that you can't indulge some creative touches. There's this great dream chase scene through a desert full of mirrors, and it's just in there because it's fucking cool. And I think I'm going to have to write about it, but honestly, I would love to boost the signal on this film and Stephanie Rothman, because she's a true pioneer of women in horror, and more people should know about her and how good she is.
Okay. Is there anything about the Kickstarter that you want to tell us as we wrap this puppy up?
All I can say is thank you if you've supported us in the past. You have without a doubt boosted the signal on some tremendous talents, and you have made me personally happier and more fulfilled than I could ever possibly express. If were it possible, I would take you all out for the beverage of your choice. It means from the bottom of my soul, the people who make these books happen. I appreciate you guys so much, and in that vein, thank you all so much for having me on and helping boost our campaign. Thank you all so very much. I really appreciate this. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. And so this is the part where, because reviews do matter, I'm assuming at some point in time, if they get funded, the books will be available on like Barnes & Noble, Amazon, that sort of thing.
The first one is available right now on Barnes & Noble. And we're working on getting them properly formatted for all the rest. But if you don't want to wait, you can head on over to our Facebook page. Just look up Go Show Press. It will take you right to our Facebook page, and right at the top of the Facebook page, you can find order links. You can get anything. You can get all three existing books in all three in any format that you want, direct from DriveThruRPG. Or, you could go and back our Kickstarter and get them all at a record low price and make the fourth one happen, which a smart shopper might want to give some thought to. But after the campaign ends, if you want to catch up with any of our books, there you go. We could go look us up on Facebook. We'll get you where you need to be.
Okay. And this is a part of the interview, dear listener, where I remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right books, so do your part. And for books like these that aren't as yet widely available, just start your own website where you review all the cool horror stuff and then review these books, and he'll thank you forever. And he might name his 30th born child after you or something. The first 30 were all of his backers. He's got a list, people. But, a man's got to have a hobby, right? So, all right. And where can listeners and viewers at home find you on the internet if they wanted to follow you guys?
If you the Go Show Press page at Facebook, and through the wonderful people at the Banff podcast, you can also find the Go Show podcast, which we do periodically as we're doing a campaign, and that's the two places to find me.
Okay. And you can find us, dear listener, on our link tree at linktr.ee linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. Again, linktree/Blasters and Blades podcast. All right. Where we link to all the things, the BitChutes, the Rumbles, the TikToks, the YouTubes, the Twitters. We've got our Facebook page and Facebook group where all the shenanigans happen. You can find Madam Stabby Stab on the Instagram, Twitters, or email for all the shenanigans. She wants all of it, send it her way, or, horror movie recommendations. She's cool with that too. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. For professional purposes only, people, send the shenanigans to Stabby. We don't got time for that nonsense. And finally, go to the link tree, click the link for our website, because it's a bunch of Spotify goobly-gook. But if you go there, you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on, or you can support the show more directly by going to buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author J.R. Handley. Be sure to put in the comment sections for the podcast, and I promise I will keep my co-hosts injecting their coffee brand coffee directly into their bloodstream that looks like coffee. So I guess we have to call it a coffee stream. So what coffee brand coffee are you drinking today? I'm still going through the s'mores, but I bought a lot of it because I liked it. And I know seasonal, so I had to stock up.
Caramel churro. That is all.
Caramel cherry?
Churro.
Oh, that's that dessert thing. Okay. Is it good?
I don't even need creamer. I don't even need creamer. And you know I love my creamer. It's just so that I don't even need creamer.
Wow, that's saying a lot. Okay. Are you still doing the French press, or are you doing the how are you making this? Are you?
I have both. I have the French press and I have the drip, and it depends on how long I leave it in the grinder because I get whole bean. So if I leave it in the grinder a little too long, it becomes French press real quick.
What about you, Chris? How do you take your coffee? You like the drip? You got the Keurig?
I have a good old-fashioned coffee maker that is literally falling apart, but it reminds me so much of myself. I can't quite part with it yet, but the day is coming when I'm going to have to be forced to upgrade to something high-tech and ridiculously convenient.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Nope.
Like my Mr. Coffee has one switch. Click.
Oh my. That's what I need, frankly. Thank you for the recommendation.
It's so simple. I don't have to set times or nothing on it. It's just a little click button. Start.
So I will recommend, when we were in Iraq, we had one of my guys was a electrical wiring person for cars, like he did souped up race cars and stuff. And so he decided we rigged like a radio system into our Humvee. We ran a coffee pot off the battery unofficially, of course. And we had this Cuisinart sitting right next to our Singar, supposedly like weatherproof, non-destructible radio system. And a sandstorm came in. The vehicle didn't work anymore. The Singar's radio didn't work anymore. But that Cuisinart coffee pot kept making coffee. So wow. I'm just saying, I'm impressed by their circa 2004 brand coffee pot. It did have sand in the coffee, but that just adds a little texture. So if you need a coffee pot, I mean, we're not sponsored by. We did send them a video. We tried to get them to make a commercial off of us. They never wrote us back, the bastards. But we still like the pot. So if you need a coffee pot, people, you heard it here first. Cuisinart. And they're not going to break the bank. So anyway, speaking
sent you a picture of Mr. Coffee so you could show the good professor later. It's just got one button, a power button.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, this is the part where I thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you for coming on, Chris. We're going to rearrange a little bit because we do that for all the Kickstarters, and this should be going out as soon as we click off. So this will be the first time, or one of the few times, dear listener, where you're going to hear this almost in real time. So this is a privilege. This is like not edited. This is just us being us, and we apologize for nothing.
No.
With that, we'll have to have you back, Professor. We do some horror topics from time to time, and now you're going on Stabby's favorite person list because you like all the same things she does.
Oh,
you get to join us for the Halloween ones.
Yeah, I got him to sign up for Halloween 3. It's his favorite.
Oh, I always wanted
Season of
friends.
the Witch.
This is nice.
Yeah, we're gonna have to start a cult. It will be like the whole movie cult, like the theme of this episode.
If he thinks I'm fun, wait till he meets Pittman. That guy can talk horror just as much as I can.
And with that, we're going to hit the end button before we get demonetized.